Chill. Transition to
Siwi tumeanza like nimeshaanzisha hiyo recording.
Okay. Hello, Maurice. It's an honor to interview you today. So let's get right into it. Tell us about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi Jemima. My name is Morris Kioko. I work at Dexter University, the office of the University Registrar, and I'm in charge of student data and registration and graduation issues. In generally, I am a senior registrar in charge of those issues to do in the registrar's office.
Okay. So we want to understand who Maurice is. Give us a brief background of where you were born, which schools did you attend, your journey leading up to Dexter.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I was born in Machakos County in a small village which is known as Musini in a sublocation which is called Vulia sublocation. And I went to the local primary school, which was Musini Primary School. And I went ahead to my grandmother. I was brought by my grandmother. Since I was very young, my grandmother is one who brought me up. Then went ahead to Mavoko High School, which is just at River Sub-County, Machakos County. And after that, I found myself at Dexter University to do computer science, applied computer science, which I finished and graduated in the year 2012.
Okay. So let's talk about your life in Dexter. Yeah, you said you're a student. Share more about your experience in Dexter and your time as a student in Dexter.
That takes me back as a student life. My student life was interesting one. First of all, finding myself to Dexter was a dream come, something which I never dreamed about. I never even thought Dexter University existed when I was growing up. So this was an honor to find myself in this institution, which I was getting to know about it because I never imagined about it. Even when I was in high school, it never crossed my head. So it was a honor for me to find myself in this institution. It's the way I found myself here. It's another story, but my student life was quite a journey. I reported as a student, started my first year, and I was trying to adjust myself to the university life, trying to learn different things about this new place which I found myself. And I can tell you it was not easy for the first 1 year. I was still trying to adjust myself, trying to fit in, and it can be really a difficulty for someone who has come from a background that does not associate with the kind of the life that you find here. Some people come from the village and they have never been anywhere in a town setup, or they have never gone to an urban university. So it has a mixed feelings for different people. So for me, it was actually a very complex feeling in terms of trying to understand everything and trying to understand the culture. And different types of people come from different background. But within the first year, second year, I had friends. I started having friends, and we went on. And the good thing with the university setup is that you get to know different people from different backgrounds, and all of you become one thing, because by the time you get to that year, all of you are just one thing. And that is the most interesting about universities. But the Dexter University was a unique one in terms of getting to know everybody, interact with everybody. It was like a small family in an institution where almost everybody knows each other, and where you cannot really suffer if there are people there who can actually hold your hand, and everybody was standing for each other. We actually really lived as a family.
So that being in a family really helped you transit from life in the village, and now you're in campus. So I think that worked well for you. We're glad. So tell us about the transition. Now you're a student, and then now to a junior staff, and then to now a senior staff. How has that transition been like, and maybe the challenges you've experienced?
Okay, yeah. As a student, I was much involved in student leadership, and also I was supporting the institutions in areas where they are needed, like technical areas, like when it comes to the wireless. Back then, we didn't have wireless the way we have it nowadays everywhere. Like you can connect to Wi-Fi from hostel. It was not easy. It was not something which was common. The wireless was only found in the library. So you had to go to the library to connect to Wi-Fi, to connect to the internet. But we started doing just a research to figure out how can we connect the whole institution with Wi-Fi. So those are the kind of the activities that I was involved in back then. As a student, I was much more involved in trying to make student life easier in the university. We started it. I was also a student leader, and also I was a resource manager of the DITA club. So the DITA is the Dexter IT club, and we actually got to engaged so much with the administration, and so the ICT, the then ICT manager, actually recognized me because of how I was pushing to have one thing like internet, just Wi-Fi across the university, across the campus, because it was not something which you could find everywhere. You had to go to the library to connect to the internet. So my transition from after I graduated, because uh, we were still much involved in the coming up with a strategy of how to install wireless across the university. That project, I was part of the team actually that came up with the layout plan of how the Wi-Fi is going to be installed, and then we gave our research to the Kenneth, which was the institution that took over to install the Wi-Fi across the university. But after that, then there was a new need that came up with the administration needed to have a new system, which was a university management system for the record keeping and also managing institution academic data. So I was also part of that. I joined that team, and I can remember very well I worked for free for almost 3 months, just working for that project until I was absorbed in contract to be able to support, because this was a new system and we were part of the team that who came up with the system. We were working with the Indians. The Indians were the main contractors of the system, and also as we were subcontracted to be working with the Indians. So that's how I actually started working at Daystar, and it was not something which I can say it was an easy transition, because just remember, in less than a year I was a student, and within 3-4 months now I'm working at the institution that educated me. I still had students who were my friends and we were hanging out. So, but I was trying to minimize that kind of interaction, because now I'm standing on the other side. Even though these guys are still my friends, I had to figure out how to just adjust myself from student to staff.
Okay, so I understand that you briefly worked in Mombasa, the Daystar Mombasa campus. Maybe you can
Yeah.
tell us about your experience there because I think that's where you started.
Yeah, I moved to Mombasa campus in 2013, and I was there as an ICT officer in charge of all the ICT infrastructure in Mombasa campus and also the systems. So we stayed there for I stayed there for 1 year, mostly almost 1 year, and it was a good experience. That's why it began. It was a new area which I have never been. It was a new location. I was still trying to adjust to the culture there. But we closed, the campus was closed, and we had to move back here. So that's where my journey began with actually Dexter University.
Okay. And recently you've started lecturing. Tell us about that experience being a registrar, then there's lecturing. Tell us specifically about the lecturing bit.
Okay, I have been at Dexter University for some time. Right now, I can say ever since I graduated, it's been 10 years. But I can only account for the days which I have been fully employed at Dexter University. I stayed as a contract for quite some time, from 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. I was still signing contracts, so I cannot really count for those days, even though I was still a Dexter employee. But I was fully employed in 2017. So after I was fully employed in 2017, I decided to go back to school to do my masters, and I went back to school in 2019. Did my masters. I'm still doing my research, collecting data to complete my thesis, and so that I can have a full completed masters. I have completed the classwork, but I'm working on my thesis. So that is how I ended up finding myself in class after I finished my masters during the COVID period. It was quite, we had to adjust for so many things. There was a lot of adjustments. We had to go online. We had to deal with the COVID itself, which was a disaster. And the administration asked those of the staffs who have done masters, all those who are almost completed their masters or doing thesis, they can really support in teaching. I really didn't think it was my thing at first. I actually debated with it because I never pictured myself as a instructor or a lecturer. But since I have done computer science, I knew I could actually go back to class and teach areas where I was strong at in computer science. I
What are
loved
some of those areas, maybe?
I loved the network engineering and operating systems. Those are areas that I was very strong, and also mathematics. I was very strong in those areas during my undergraduate class in computer science. So we were humbly asked by the administration to help where we could, and so we, I went back to class to teach, and I started teaching the introduction level for the undergraduate students, and also started teaching networking and also operating system. So I have I did not know how it will go, but when I went back to the class, and it went well. I didn't actually think it will go that well, and the students, they were very impressed by my delivery, and I thought I was just doing for one semester, but it became a routine. Went on and on. Now it's been heading to 3 years teaching.
So, you find the balance? How do you strike the balance between being a senior registrar and a lecturer now?
Now, in most scenarios, I am now currently during the COVID classes were online. It was easy to balance between work because my job is very demanding here in the office, and also the classes are demanding too because you have to be in class. But during the COVID time, the classes were online, and the job also, my job, which is mostly technical job, requires me to do mostly things. I can actually deliver everything. I don't need to be physical in the office to deliver things because it's more technical job, and I can actually log into the computer from wherever I am and I'll still deliver. But since the classes are coming back to physical now, I am now teaching the classes in the evening and also the days which I am on leave, because you have leave days. You just distribute your leave days across the semester, and you say I'll be just teaching the class on Friday and also evenings. So during the day you are working, in the evening you are teaching, or during your leave days you are teaching. So that's how I actually balance it so that you don't overstretch yourself or you don't feel like you are getting overwhelmed by the work.
So between the two, which one do you enjoy most? Your job or the teaching? Which one appeals to you more? Which one do you enjoy
Okay,
doing more?
I I have been teaching for like 2 years now plus, and I've been this doing this job of mine for more than 5 6 years. So I have tried to balance everything, but I feel like everything I enjoy, everything. There's nothing which I don't enjoy. I enjoy being in class, just teaching. I enjoy delivering new information. I prefer giving that, delivering that information, that, and also want to train these young minds and new the students who are in the class something new about technology, and give them to deliver something so that they can be able to feel there is a difference between, back during our time when we were students, we did not have this kind of romp past the technology we have today. Sometimes we ended up in the library to read books so that we can understand some of the things. But nowadays, almost everything is online. So you can actually get the current information, the current technology that is actually being developed today. And I love to give that. I'm also learning because as I'm teaching, I do research and I'm also learning about all these things. So it is also an education for me as it is for them. And in the office, I have a lot of work which I deal with. I'm dealing with registration. I set up registration. I set up the timetable setups. I do the graduation now. We are actually preparing for the graduation which is coming in November. That is my responsibility, all of it. I do all things to do with the student data and give reports. So it's so long I love everything which is technical. So long as it's technical, I'm ready to do.
Okay, I being a registrar is it has its challenges. It's very complex. So how do you deal with these challenges?
Well, okay, this job it's quite a job because managing academic records and also the student data is not a simple task that you just say, okay, this is just what we do, because of the sensitivity of it that comes with it, integrity of it, and confidentiality of it. So you have to be confidential as possible, and you have to be a person of integrity, high integrity actually, and you have to be still a friend of the people. To balance that is quite complex because uh, if you need to retain the integrity part, you have to show how seriousness you are with your job. So you cannot just play with it and don't take the seriousness of it, because integrity requires you to show the seriousness of this job so that people can respect it. It's not you they respect, it's the office which you are holding. It is very complex. we are dealing with a lot of information in terms of academics. We deal with that graduation, and sometimes you find someone has not done the right thing. It is you to tell them that you have not done the right thing and you need to do this thing this way. Sometimes you get the people who are so difficult, who they don't want to do the things the way you have taught them to do. They want to cut corners, and they think that it is their right to do things the way they want to do. They don't want to follow things, they don't want to follow the policies, regulations which have been laid upon. It is you to tell them it is not right, whatever you're trying to do, in a humane way. Sometimes you find people who are still too difficult not to understand you, but you have to hold your stand and keep the integrity of the job at the office.
Okay, so I'll just follow up with, because of the nature of your job, some students think you're tough or very difficult to deal with. Why do you think that is so?
Because of the nature of my job, yeah, I understand. Because this office, it carries a lot of weight. From the beginning of a student who has joined in Dexter University, you come in through the registrar's office. Until you graduate, you still go away through the registrar's office. So we are the people. We are the people who open the door, and we are people who are still going to open the other door for you to walk out. Between here, there is a lot of things that happens. There is registrations, there is examinations, and there is graduations. So you find different people who have complied with the policies and the rules and the regulations, but you are still going to find people who have tried to cut the corners, and they don't want to follow the policy. They want to cut. They want to have a shortcut in that, and that becomes a very difficult thing to deal with, because you still have to maintain the rules and the regulations of the office. The integrity part must be observed, and at the same time, you're dealing with human beings. You have to tell them this is not going to be possible. You have to keep your stand. Sometimes it is not you as a person, it is the stand of the office. Even if you go to which other office, you still find the policies don't apply in my office only, they apply across. So you have to maintain those policies. You have to be a person who, you don't have to speak two different languages. Today you are speaking this, tomorrow you are speaking this. No. Maintain the policy, maintain the regulations, and observe the integrity that comes with the office. And that, it is difficult for some people. They find it difficult to really follow that. And that makes it look like you are the difficult person. You are not really helping me. But if you stand on the other side and look at the scenario, you'll understand you have broken the rules. You don't want to follow the rules. You want to somehow to be favored, but that is not how it works.
Oh, so what I'm taking home here is integrity is very important in your job, and wow, that's very commendable. So tell us, who is your role model?
I have many, but I can mention my dad, Dr. John Maso, the late Dr. John Maso, who passed away in 2017, and may the Lord keep his eternal life at peace. The reason why I talk about him, he was a father to me. He accepted me as a child when I was in the lowest moments of my life, when I did not know what to do. I did not have any future, I can say so. At some point, I was in the streets, and I have been through life, which came from my background, my upbringing, and then The way I was brought up, it's quite complex. That I found myself in a situation where I was not thinking about my future. But he came in when I had lost hope in life, and I have never called anybody else dad apart from him. So he's my father, and he took me in and he taught me a lot of things. Even he was quite a very quiet person, but when he speaks, you can actually listen to him, and it makes sense everything he would say. He was a physicist. Everything he was talking about was about physics, but there was always advice within that physics. So he modeled me. He was a leader, and actually I observed his leadership style, and I was quite puzzled by his leadership styles. Why does he choose to do things the way he chooses to do them? And I followed these ways of life, and that's what I use today. I I can say I apply a lot of things I learned from him. And another role model is my boss, Dr. Paul Mbutu. I came to know him when I was just joining this department, and he took me in as just a son. I was very young, at 25, 26 years old, and I, I can say I've come close to losing faith in a lot of things. But every time I'll sit down with him, he will tell me, he will give me his background of what he has gone through, and then I'll look at myself and say, okay, I think I can still have some faith. He is not the kind of the boss who leads in front or leads at the back. He's in the middle. He's there with you. He's there when you're working. He does not sit in front and lead from the front, or sit at the back and lead from the back. He sits in the middle with you, and he's going whatever you are doing, everything you are working on is with you. And that's how you can say he has also been part of my role model ever since I lost my dad. He became like a father figure to me.
Wow, those are wonderful mentors. So now let's talk about the unofficial models. What is your social life like? Your hobbies, perhaps?
Yeah, okay. I have, apart from being the office, there's still the person who you'll meet outside the office. And most of people, they don't know that person, obviously, because they have only interacted with me in the office only. So when they see me outside, they still think I'm still the same guy who is seated behind the bench and very serious and tough. But I'm just a normal person outside the office there. We'll meet there, we'll talk, we'll laugh. I have friends who are students and ex-students who I have maintained the friendship. And we actually meet, spend time, talk, share some wisdom, give out some encouragement to those who need it. I I have quite a private small circle, and I prefer keeping it that way. My hobby is I prefer cycling. I, I joined cycling. I have a just cycling club, but I also do it alone. In the During the COVID time, it's when I actually did a lot. Because now we were working from home. When you do your work, you just I'll get on my bike and I go for like several kilometers. And I decided that I'm going to cover 7,000 kilometers within 2 years, which I covered within 1 year actually. So
Wow.
it is now a hobby. It has become a hobby. Something that I used to, when I was young, cycling was something we never used to have. It was a game for the elite. So we did not grow up with the bicycles or anything. We actually learned cycling using other people's bicycles or stealing, which was a bad thing. But now I can say I just love cycling. It's my hobby.
All right. So that's very interesting. So, what are some of the life lessons you have learned so far up to where you are?
Well, I began my childhood from the village, and my mind was just around the village. I remember when I was very young, maybe in lower class level in primary school or middle level. I'd never gone anywhere. I was just a local boy who just maybe would go to the local market and just go to the river and play with the other kids. But my mind was just enclosed within that local area. So if anybody would ask me, what do you want to become when you grow up? I didn't have anything in mind that I have ever seen outside there. Because the mind, even if you ask those kids who are somewhere they have never been anywhere else, their minds are around in that area, they will tell you about things that they usually see. So for me, there used to be a bus driver who used to drive along the route, and the matatu, it looks like a cool thing just to drive a matatu. So I just used to admire the guy who drives that matatu, and I just wanted to be a matatu driver. Little did I know that there's so many things out there in the world that I can become. So eventually I moved out of the village. The life lessons that I came to find out there is quite complex, because I found out there were so many things that I could be. I had a lot of potentiality, and I worked on becoming that person I found out that I could be. After my small mind in the village has moved out, it was blown out by so many things that I could be. And I can
Wow.
tell you that I think the only thing that people lack is exposure. If you expose people to the world out there, I'm very sure their minds are going to open, and they will change their way of reasoning towards what they want to be. Today, I am a senior registrar, and I'm also a lecturer, things which I never thought I'll be. But my background, my career has been shaped by my academic studies.
Wow, that's very interesting. It's very encouraging. So, what's your parting shot?
I can say there is a lot of things that very young people they want to try, but you need to look at what you are doing with your life. You need to look at your strengths and look at your weaknesses. Your strengths will always build you. You need to overcome your weaknesses as a young person. And I always tell people that you need always to look back 5 years ago. Stop looking 5 years in the future, and that's what people make mistake. Look back 5 years ago and compare it with the current situation you are in at the moment. If you feel like there's a growth in your life, then you're doing okay. It means that you are a consistent person. Maintain that consistency. But if you look at it and see there's some drop, or there's no change at all in your life, then you need to change the strategy of how you are doing things. You have to change, because there's no way your current situation can be the same as 5 years ago. It's not possible.
Wow, that's very interesting. I've gotten a thing or two. I'll remember to have a strategy and to look 5 years back. So thank you so much for your time. We're glad. I'm very glad I've learned a lot from you today.
Thank you very much for the interview.